are talking alcohol today and your relationship with it. I suspect that thousands of people across Devon today will be starting dry January, a commitment to stay away from the booze for the rest of the month. Is that you? And if it is, what's prompted you to make the decision? Have you, and be honest, have you been drinking more since the pandemic began? Pick up the phone, give me a call, share your story. It might help someone else. 0808 100 1034. 0808 100 1034. It's our free phone number. Or text me 81333, starting your message with Devon.
Michael Checker. BBC Radio Devon.
Yes, do you fancy a drink? Maybe you've had one already. The sun's well over the yard arm, isn't it? Over the festive season, a lot of us will have indulged in an alcoholic drink or two. And we also know that supermarket sales of booze have risen over the lockdowns. But now January is upon us, and perhaps you are thinking of cutting back. I'm not suggesting you're an alcoholic. I'm just suggesting that maybe you've drunk a little bit more than you'd like to be, and you've decided that this is the time to get a handle on that and to cut back and feel a little bit healthier. I'd like to talk about your relationship with alcohol today in the next hour. Have you been drinking more than you'd like? Have you decided to cut back? Maybe you are doing dry January. Let's start off by talking to Simon Chapple. Simon's written a couple of books, one about how he cut back on his own heavy drink habit, and the second aimed at helping other people to reduce their intake. He also runs the Be Sober website. Hi, Simon. This is a key time of year, really, isn't it, for people analysing what they drink?
Hi, Michael. Yeah, absolutely. It's a time when everybody tends to reflect on their relationship with alcohol.
Is it... And clearly, I suppose it is inevitable if people are not teetotal that they probably will have indulged a bit more over the festive period. A lot of the time, people have had more time off work. In other years, you might have had friends round.
Yeah. And I think not only have you got the traditional overindulging, there's heightened anxiety at the moment. People might be worried about their jobs, relationships can be under strain. There's so much going on at the moment that I understand why people might be drinking that bit more.
Tell me a little bit about your own story. I said at the introduction there that you had at one point quite a heavy drink habit. Tell me what got you to that point.
Absolutely. I drank from my mid-teenage years. And at first, it seemed like fun. And I thought alcohol was adding so much to my life. Before I knew it, in my early to mid-20s, I was drinking every single day, and it didn't take long for one bottle of wine a day to creep up to 2 or 3 bottles of wine a day, which is where I found myself in my 30s and early 40s. But by the end, when I finally quit, I was drinking at least 2 or 3 bottles a day, often with spirits or beers on top as well.
Yeah, and once you get to that stage, there's no bones about it. That is alcohol abuse, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely was. I was addicted to an addictive substance. It had done its job.
How easy was it to acknowledge what had happened and what you'd become?
Well, I always talk to people about the 5 stages of sobriety, and the first stage is unawareness, where you're living in ignorant bliss and you don't even realize there's a problem. And I spent many years in that place. I was probably drinking myself to death, but I didn't realize I had a problem. And when I did realize that there was a trigger, I saw a piece on the news, which I usually would have ignored, a piece rather like this, actually. And I paid attention to it, and that planted the seed. And I ended up with an internal conflict where part of me wanted to quit, part of me wanted to carry on drinking, and it was really uncomfortable. That's the second stage, when we become aware. And I spent 5 years stuck in that place. And one of the reasons I do the work I do as a sobriety coach and an author is to actually educate people that they don't need to spend that long stuck in that discomfort, because it's the most horrible place to be. We can move through it a lot quicker than that.
Ignorance, then awareness. Where do you go after that?
So after that, you move to education and learning. You start finding out what it's like to live an alcohol-free life, hopefully getting excited and motivated about it, and also understanding the best strategies for quitting drinking. after educating yourself, you start putting these things into practice in the real world, actually getting out there, because it's a bit like learning a new skill. And unfortunately, sometimes we can have some setbacks and there can be some bumps in the road. But as long as we keep getting up and moving forward, we keep growing and developing. And generally after sort of 4 to 6 months, we tend to master it. We really feel like we've got it cracked and we're not thinking about drinking any longer. And our lives have changed for the better in so many ways. I spend a lot of time trying to help people understand. I was going to say make people, but I help them understand. I wish I could make them understand everything they gain when they give up alcohol. So many people think they lose something, but when you realize that you become a better parent, a better partner, more motivated, more energized, your mental health improves. My anxiety was out of control when I was drinking, and it faded away to almost nothing after I quit. So I would never go back. But until you see these gifts and understand them, it's quite hard to break out of the cycle.
So presumably the 5th stage of your 5 stages is sobriety.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, mastering it. You've literally got it under your belt and you're happily sober and enjoying your life again.
Thank you so much for talking to us today, Simon. I know you're happy to stay with us for a little while, and we'll chat a bit more in a minute. Maybe if people have got questions or points they'd like to make, I know we can put those to you as well. So we'll come back and talk more in just a moment. Simon Chapple is my guest for the start of this part of the programme. Simon's written about how he cut back on his own drinking, and then another book on how to help other people to reduce their intake as well. I'd love to talk to you about your relationship with alcohol. Be open, be honest. You know, maybe you don't drink that much, but you'd still like to cut back a little bit in January because you think it'll make you feel a bit better, and you're happy to go back to your current moderate intake in February. That's fine. Let me know what you're doing and why you're doing it. 0808 100 1034 is my number. More from Simon, and maybe your thoughts too, after this from Whitney Houston. BBC Radio Devon, Whitney Houston, and perhaps appropriately so emotional. We are talking alcohol today. We are talking about dry January. Thousands of people will be starting dry January today, I suspect. Are you one of them? Are you giving up alcohol for the month of January? We're talking about this to Simon, who's with us today. This is Simon Chapple, who used to have a very abusive, I guess, relationship with alcohol, but these days is, well, that's a good point, Simon. Are you completely dry now, or do you enjoy an occasional drink?
No, I'm completely sober. I've committed to an alcohol-free lifestyle, so no, never again for me.
And is that inevitable? If you've reached the stage that you reached, is there no halfway house? You either give it up or you don't.
That's a great question, because so many people, when they're on the path to changing their relationship with drinking, they want to hang on to that toxic relationship and realize that actually there is no halfway house. Moderation's not an option, but you have to kind of learn that the hard way in many cases, and they'll experiment with it. They'll try and find a way of perhaps starting drinking later. I even tried to water down my wine at one point in an effort to just hang on to something, but in the end I realized that complete freedom was on the other side of that bottle.
And what about the social side of it? I mean, let's leave coronavirus tears out of this for a moment and just imagine a world where life is back to normal. Do you still, meet your friends in the pub to have a chat and a drink, and you might have a Diet Coke or an orange juice or whatever, and they have a pint, or do you just have to keep yourself completely out of that environment?
When I first quit, I stayed away from any people, places or situations where I thought I might be triggered to drink. But as time has gone by, I'm really comfortable in those situations, but I've learned to be able to say no. I find a lot of people who are heavy drinkers tend to kind of be people pleasers as well, and don't sort of find their voice in terms of doing and saying what they want to do. So now I'll go if I want to go, and perhaps we're having a meal or there's something worthwhile to attend, but I wouldn't just go to the pub for the sake of it or go every single night. That just wouldn't appeal to me. The beauty of a sober lifestyle is you create so much more time for yourself, and you re-engage with hobbies and activities that you've long since forgotten about, and you bring joy back into your life again.
It's interesting. I mean, I've not been through what you've been through, but neither am I an alcohol-free saint. I enjoy a pint from time to time. One thing I find myself doing, as I've got older, I don't enjoy the sensation of waking up in the morning with a thick head. And actually, what I'll do sometimes, if it's my round at the bar, I'll go up there and I'll come back with my drink. And actually, I've actually got a pint of low alcohol beer, or maybe I've got if I've been having a whiskey and Coke, well, I'll come back with just the Coke, and no one knows there's just a whiskey in it, but it's just a way of moderating your own intake. Is that a familiar sounding story as well?
Yes, it is actually. And also, alcohol-free beers. There's some amazing choices available now. So anyone doing dry January, explore those with excitement and interest, because they're great.
Oh, that is so true. 20, 30 years ago, alcohol-free beers were rank. Let's be honest.
Absolutely.
But these days, there is some really good stuff out there, isn't there?
Yeah, and there's lots of craft breweries making ales and IPAs. They're absolutely amazing. And the only one they don't seem to have got nailed is red wine, which doesn't bother me because I wouldn't want that anyway. But most of them, there's even Proseccos. There's no Secco instead of Prosecco, which my wife drinks. But that is a common thing. And a lot of people worry about social situations and what they're going to say when their friends ask them if they're not drinking. Often, if you've got a glass in your hand, as you say, Michael, people don't even notice. They don't even bat an eyelid. Yeah. They're more interested in what they're drinking.
But for you personally, presumably drinks like that are a no-no because they're too similar to the drinks you had a problem with?
I actually quite enjoy alcohol-free beers. They don't trigger me to have the real thing, but for some people they do. And it's important that if you're on this path or exploring your relationship with drinking, if you find them to be triggering, you quite quickly move away from them. But I found the Botanical drinks to be an amazing new experience for me, and having those with tonic water. I mean, they don't really taste like any kind of alcohol drink, but they still feel grown up. So I've really enjoyed those as well.
And a treat drink, maybe. That's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, what was really interesting, I did a workshop yesterday with around 200 people online, and I had a poll running in the workshop. And one of the biggest reasons that I always ask people to identify the reason why they think they like to drink. And I thought it was going to be anxiety, relieving stress, things like that. The biggest reason was people felt it was a reward at the end of a tough day. So you're on the money with what you just said there.
Absolutely right. How often have I or I've heard other people say, get out for work, oh, that was a tough one. I'll have a glass of red or whatever.
Exactly. And I encourage people to say to themselves, actually, what do I really need in this moment? What is it I really want? Is it to be heard, to feel loved or wanted or acknowledged by someone? And just digging a little bit deeper into that, just by getting aware and getting curious about what's going on for them.
Are you what's the phrase? A sobriety evangelist now, Simon? Do you try and steer anyone away from alcohol, or do you just try and steer those away who find themselves unable to say no?
I only connect and deal with people who want to talk to me about it. So I would, if I went into a pub and somebody was drinking too much and it was apparent to me, I certainly wouldn't go up and ram my views down their throat. If they approached me and asked me for my thoughts or some advice, I would absolutely help them with it. But I'm not here to judge. I was in that position myself for many years, and I wouldn't have wanted to have been judged. But as soon as people reach out to me for help, which they can do through my website or via my social media stuff, I'm there for them.
What about people who are moderate drinkers, though? Is that, in your mind, is that okay? Is it okay to drink a little bit?
Yeah, and my wife actually drinks moderately, and I haven't divorced her. She's still my wife. Yeah.
Still prepared to share a house.
Yeah, prepared to share a house. Yeah, I only preach at her at the weekends. No, I don't do that at all. But moderate drinking, I always ask people to just check in with themselves and ask the question, am I in control of alcohol, or is alcohol in control of me? Be really honest. And if you feel that you're thinking about drinking during the day, obsessing about how much you're going to buy, what time you're going to start drinking, that's when you know that relationship's probably become toxic. If you can have a glass or two, just like my wife can, and just leave it and not have another one for a week, there isn't a problem, and lots of people can do that. I'm rather jealous of those people, but I don't miss it now. But there are people who can do that, and that's fine. I think you've got to be really honest with yourself though about how alcohol's showing up in your life.
And when it comes to dry January, I guess the kind of the obvious conclusion from that is the people who find dry January the easiest are the ones who probably didn't need to do it in the first place.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. And if you're counting down the days to the 1st of February so you can break the door of the pub down again, that's when you should perhaps be approaching dry January with a slightly different mindset and really evaluating what that relationship looks like, and whether you want to think about taking a longer break, noticing what changes across the month, whether you're feeling calmer, happier, whether life's improved, and really taking stock rather than just gritting your teeth and using willpower.
Simon, brilliant to speak to you. Thank you so much for your time. One of your books is called How to Quit Alcohol in 50 Days.
Yes.
In a nutshell, is the conclusion just stop, or do you try and wean people off a little at a time?
The first half of the book is all about getting people to really understand their relationship with alcohol before making a commitment to either to take a break or to actually accept that they're happy with their drinking and just get conscious about it, that they're okay with it. So it's not to make everyone who reads it quit. It's just to make everyone be happy with their decision and to be happy with that relationship. So it's no longer causing them an internal conflict in their mind. And then the second half is once people have made a commitment, it holds their hand through a 25-day break.
Jane has emailed us, says this advice sounds exactly the same as that given to smokers. Is it therefore the same for any addiction? And Jane goes on to say, congratulations to your guest for conquering his own demons and trying to help others. So praise from Jane for you there. And is it the same for any addiction? Interesting question.
Yeah, that's a great question from Jane. And funny enough, somebody in my community on Instagram is actually using my book to cut back on sugar and chocolate because he's already cracked alcohol. And he's finding the book is doing the trick. And I think addictive behavior is often, we use it often to hide away from certain things, often feelings, emotions, perhaps things from our past that we've never resolved. And the process of becoming self-aware and the tactics to deal with cravings, they are pretty much the same. So I think Jane's right. You can use that approach in the same way.
Simon, good to speak to you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Simon Chapple, Quit Alcohol Coach. You can find out more about his books, How to Quit Alcohol in 50 Days, and the Sober Survival Guide at his website, besober.co.uk.